Okay, so let's get right into it. Today, we are talking about a pretty fascinating conversational method called street epistemology. Now, this thing started out as a tool for, well, challenging faith, but it's really evolved into something much, much broader. At its heart, though, is a question I think we all wrestle with. In a world jam-packed with deeply held, often clashing beliefs, how on earth do we actually talk to each other? I mean, you know the feeling, right? You're talking about something important, politics, religion, you name it, and you just hit a total brick wall. It stops feeling like a conversation and just becomes two people kind of shouting past each other. And the whole thing just fizzles out in frustration, leaving everyone even more certain they were right all along. It's exhausting. And it's that exact feeling that the modern version of street epistemology is trying to fix. So what is street epistemology really? Let's get a clear definition on the table. Because this isn't about winning a debate. It's not about proving someone wrong. It's actually a method of inquiry, a way to gently explore the very foundations of why we believe what we believe. And you gotta pay attention to the language here. The key words aren't belief or conclusion. They're words like reflect, quality of reasons, and reliability of methods. See, the modern practice of SE is way less concerned with the what of a belief and way more interested in the how. How did you get there? Is the process you used a reliable way to figure out what's true?
This quote from a user on Reddit just nails it. The ideal conversation is framed like a collaborative interview, not a fight. The goal isn't to convert anybody, it's just to spark some reflection. If the other person walks away simply thinking a little more deeply about why they believe something, hey, that's a win for everybody.
Okay, but what does this actually look like in a real conversation? Let's break down the practical steps. There's a pretty basic flow that most of these talks follow.
It really boils down to these three things. First, you get a clear, specific claim. Not something vague, but something like, I believe that karma is a real force in the universe. Simple. Then you ask them how confident they are in that, usually on a scale. And then, and this is the absolute core of it, you just explore how they landed on that level of confidence. What's the main reason for their belief?
So that second step, gauging confidence, that's where you'll see a number like this pop up. You might ask, so on a scale from 0 to 100, how confident are you? It's not about being super scientific, it's just a tool. It gives you both a starting point, and it's a way to see if that confidence might shift even a little as you explore the reasons behind it.
Now this is so important. The person asking the questions doesn't need to show up with a bunch of facts and studies. You're not there to say, aha, your facts are wrong. The whole conversation revolves around exploring the other person's own internal reasoning. If they say faith is their method, you ask questions about faith. If they say it was a personal experience, you ask about that experience. You never have to pull out your phone and Google a single thing.
But what happens when you get that classic response? Well, that's just my truth. The SE community has come up with a few little thought experiments for this. You've got the wall test, which kind of asks if a personal belief can just override physical reality. And then there's the money test, which explores whether my truth is a fair standard when we need to agree on something objective, like, getting the right change back. These aren't meant to be gotcha questions. They're just designed to gently poke at the edges of pure subjectivity.
Okay, now all this sounds very collaborative, very neutral, right? But it did not start out that way, not at all. To really get what street epistemology is all about, you have to look at its pretty controversial origins and see how it has just dramatically changed over the past decade or so.
Yep, the term was coined by a philosopher named Peter Boghossian, and the title of his book, well, it doesn't leave much to the imagination, does it? The original goal was framed explicitly as a form of deconversion. It was a strategy to talk people out of their religious faith, and this initial framing, right here, is the source of almost all the controversy that still follows the movement today.
You can really see the shift on this timeline. What started as this manual for creating atheists got picked up by people on YouTube, and they started to refine the tone, making it way less combative. That eventually led to a real nonprofit, Street Epistemology International, which officially reframed the entire mission towards civil dialogue. And just recently, they put out a whole free course that basically codifies this modern, neutral approach for anybody who wants to learn. And this quote from Anthony Magnabosco, who's one of the most well-known early practitioners, is super telling. He's basically acknowledging that, yeah, the early days were different and the method has really grown up. He's saying that the modern official version is a better, more fine-tuned tool than what he was working with a decade ago.
But as you can probably guess, not everyone is sold on this evolution. Because of where it came from, street epistemology faces some really sharp criticism from a few different angles. Is it truly a neutral tool for dialogue? Or is it just a slicker, more polite way to manipulate people?
One of the biggest critiques comes from religious organizations. For example, the Christian Research Institute.
And their argument is pretty straightforward. You can't just separate the method from its origin story. They point right back to Boghossian's book, to language calling faith a virus. And they argue that no matter how polite it seems on the surface, the ultimate goal is still the same. It's a form of atheist evangelism designed to tear down religious belief.
And the criticism isn't just from religious corners. This Reddit user points out a totally different problem. When it's done badly or with bad intentions, it can feel incredibly manipulative. The person asking the questions has all the power, they never have to defend a thing, while the other person is constantly on the back foot. It can feel less like a friendly chat and more like a passive-aggressive interrogation.
So this table really just lays out the whole tension perfectly. On one side, you have the original framing, with its very clear goal of creating atheists and its aggressive metaphors. And on the other side, you have the modern framing from the community and its nonprofit, which is all about reflection, civility, and looking at any kind of belief, not just religious ones. The big question is whether the modern version has really truly escaped the shadow of the original.
Okay, so after all of that, the history, the arguments, the controversy, why does any of this actually matter? Let's bring it all the way back to that problem we started with, those conversations that just go absolutely nowhere. Well, proponents of the modern evolved SE say it offers some really powerful benefits, and it's not just about talking to other people. It's a tool to get better at your own critical thinking. It gives you a framework for talking about tough subjects without blowing up your relationships. And on a bigger scale, the hope is that it could be a small antidote to the polarization that just defines so much of our world today.
In the end, whether you see it as a useful tool or a sneaky tactic, the whole journey of street epistemology points to a deep, deep need we have right now. We live in a world that is constantly screaming at us to argue, to debate, to win. The ideal that the modern SE community puts forward is, well, it's a different path, one that's focused not on victory, but on understanding.
And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. In your next tough conversation, what might change if you just shifted your goal completely? Not to score points, not to change their mind, but just to genuinely, truly understand the reasons and the methods they use to get to their belief. What would that conversation even look like?